I truly believe we're getting closer and closer to the point where the women of WWE need their own show. Like when I tell you that this roster is just way too stacked, and I don't just mean with the amazing talent they have, but I also mean with the amount of women they have, to only be getting like one match and one promo a show, sometimes two matches if they're lucky, that just cannot be happening. And I'm not even kidding, by the way. If you go back and you watch some of the recent Raws and SmackDowns of this year, the women have gotten at the most two matches and one promo a show. And now we added not only one, but two women mid-card belts, which I am super excited for, by the way, because I believe the women are very deserving of these mid-card belts. But I also understand that there's just not enough time to make wrestlers look like, well, credible wrestlers at this mid-card spot. So if you have your mid-card champions, how are they ever going to look credible? How are they ever going to get shown off if they're never on TV? How are you ever going to build up, other wrestlers to potentially challenge for these belts if there's just not enough time within a 2-hour show? Now, there is talks about Raw and SmackDown going back to 3 hours once Raw goes to Netflix. But even then, we've seen before that they still didn't get that much time on the show. So how the heck are they supposed to get enough time now? What, because SmackDown is getting 1 extra hour that, we're going to use that 1 extra hour for both women's mid-card divisions? I don't think it's possible. And Raw's definitely going to have issues because now it's being rumored that Cody and Roman are coming over to Monday Night Raw. If you include that on top of the fact that there's already so many storylines going on over there with the whole Wyatt Six storyline, you got the New Day storyline, you got Braun Breaker, and I didn't even get to speak about Braun Breaker. I just thought about that. This guy doesn't even get to be on the dang show that much because of the fact that there's just not enough time within the 2-hour time limit. Now, obviously, the 3-hour time limit, he'll get to be on the show more, but we haven't even been able to really build up anybody for Braun Breaker to be facing or for Braun Breaker to have big storylines with. I don't know how we're going to be able to do that with the women's mid-card belts as well. But let's not only talk about the women's mid-card titles, let's talk about the women's tag team titles, because folks are starting to say that these titles should be scrapped. And I'm not even going to lie to you, I'm kind of one of those people because I just don't see how you're going to be able to have any time for it. Sure, right now you have a little bit of time because the women's mid-card belts still aren't technically here yet. But ever since they've been announced, we ain't even talked about these tag titles. We really don't even have tag team matches going on. Obviously, it's because Bianca is the only one of her team that's available, but she ain't dropped them titles for a reason either, and it's probably because you don't really want to put them on anybody else if you're thinking about scrapping them. I would hate for the women to have to get their belts scrapped because I feel like they deserve scrapped. I would hate for the women to have to get their belts scrapped because I feel like they deserve to have women's tag titles as well. That's the whole point of the women's revolution, is to give more love to the women's division. But there's just not enough time on the show. Because it's not for the lack of talent. You have a lot of talented women's tag teams. You got Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. You got Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. You got Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. You got other tag teams like the Kabuki Warriors whenever Asuka gets back. Or right now you can count Io and Kairi Sane. Maybe Liv and Raquel go back to being a tag team. But there's just not enough time to show off these tag teams, as well as showing off the women's mid-cards, as well as showing off the women's champions, as well as showing off the men's tag teams, as well as showing off the men's mid-card champions, as well as showing off the men's top card champions. It's just not enough time in a 3-hour show. I think you need another show for the women. And I didn't even mention all the talented women coming up from NXT. Everybody said that NXT has the best women's division. What happens when that women's division comes onto the main roster and now you have this super talented women's division from NXT on top of the super talented women's division on Raw and SmackDown? What do you do then? How do you feed all these mouths? Let me just name off some of the names. Roxanne, Cora, Jordynne Grace is likely coming over from TNA. That's why she lost her title. Julia, Stephanie, Zarya, Jada, Kalani, Sol Ruka, and so many more. Tatum Paxley, you got JC Jane and Fallon Henley. There's so many women that are going to be coming up within the next few years. And we just seen one of them come back like a few nights ago in Shotzi. What are you actually going to do? How are you going to have time for all of these women to be on the show? Newsflash, you're not. Some of these mouths are not going to get fed. And I guess if they're just content with, collecting a check and never being on the show, then fine. But I think a lot of them are not going to be content with that. Like, I don't think Julia, Stephanie, and Jordynne Grace left their old promotions to come to WWE to not get the screen time that they feel that they deserve. I don't think Roxanne Perez has been working her butt off for the past 8, 9, 10 years to basically become a jobber on the main roster. I don't think these women did that. Jada Parker definitely did not leave soccer to come do this. Like, it's no, you have to give them their screen time, and there's just too much mouths to feed. But if I'm an NXT women's wrestler, I might just wait a few years because this main roster, most of these women are still in their prime. Nia Jax is your current WWE Women's Champion, and she's 40. Rhea Ripley's only 28. Bayley's only 34. Io Sky's only 34. Liv Morgan's only 30. Bianca Belair's only 33. These women still have plenty of years, especially with the style that they wrestle. They don't wrestle at some high-flying style besides Io Sky and it's kind of Bayley, but Bayley's more of like a technician than she is high flying. So they still have plenty of years. Their bodies haven't taken as much damage yet. So I don't know how the heck you're thinking if you're in NXT that you're going to come up with this current Raw and SmackDown and not most likely be a jobber, especially when these women are big-time breadwinners. Rhea Ripley is top 3 in WWE right now. There's no way you're taking her spot. Probably not taking Bayley's spot. Liv Morgan is on the rise, too. You're probably not taking her spot either. Oh, yeah, and I didn't even mention the fact that Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, and Carmella are all supposed to come back in 2025. Now, Carmella's probably not going to come back and be a top women's champion, but she's definitely going to be in that mid-card spot. Alexa Bliss, she's probably going to be in that top card spot for a minute and then drop down to the mid-card spot, and you already know where Charlotte Flair is going to be. She's most likely always going to be in that top card spot. Maybe she'll go down to the mid-card to become a Grand Slam champion officially. Now there's mid-card titles there. I think Bayley also will as well. And I forgot to mention Becky Lynch, too, who's probably also going to be in that mid-card spot, so she can be a Grand Slam champion as well. And with all that, that's not even factoring my last biggest thing is that there's supposed to be less PLEs next year and more Saturday Night Main Events. And I know Saturday Night Main Event is basically a PLE, but I don't really count it as one because it's a 2-hour show, plenty of ads stalled throughout it. It's basically just a Raw and SmackDown, in my opinion, so not really going to count it as a PLE. So there's only like 6 to 8 PLEs. That's even less chance for the women to get on the PLEs because of the fact that they already don't even get as much time to be on the PLEs as is. So, yeah, and I've heard people throw around the idea that maybe the women could get their own PLE. I don't like that either because there's no real buildup for the PLE. I would just love a woman's show. Still have some of the men on there, maybe just to, like, you know, not have it as like this is a WNBA and then Raw and SmackDown are like our NBA, kind of, you know, still have them there. Maybe where the women have more matches on the show and the men have less matches. That way the women can get more time. I would like that a lot more. Then maybe if you also did a women's only PLE or maybe like a more women's focused PLE but still had some men matches on there too, then we could start talking about that. But I personally believe that the women need to have their own show or at least a show that's more focused towards them so we don't have a bunch of women get lost in the sauce. But hey, that's just my opinion, though. I would love to hear from y'all down below. How do y'all feel about the women's division? Do y'all feel that it's time for them to get their own shows, to get their own PLEs, or at least shows and PLEs more catered towards them? Or do you think that they're fine with the Raw and SmackDown style right now? Because who knows where the women's roster is going to be at next year. You know, maybe a lot of those women do stay down in NXT. Maybe a lot of women from the main roster move down to NXT, or maybe they're not there, or who knows what the heck happens. Y'all go ahead and let me know how y'all feel about this whole thing down below. And as always, if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe for more.